Hello, and welcome to today's Heart and Stroke webinar. I will now welcome Catherine Rand, Director of Health Promotion and Government Relations at Heart and Stroke.
Thank you so much, Kirsten. My name is Catherine Rand, and I'll be one of your moderators for today's webinar. As mentioned, I'm the Director of Government Relations and Health Promotion here in Nova Scotia, and I'm also a registered dietitian. And I'm certainly excited for one of today's topics that I'm very passionate about. I'd like to start by acknowledging the land in which I sit here in Halifax. It's the traditional unceded land of the Mi'kmaq people. By sharing this acknowledgement, we are showing our commitment to reconciliation and the increased awareness of Indigenous history and perspectives. Heart and Stroke employees across the country have been working quickly to bring you reliable and credible information. We've created a specific page on our website related to COVID-19 topics, and we're sharing our extensive and ever-growing list of resources. We encourage you to check it out at heartandstroke.ca/coronavirus. In terms of what's new and upcoming, this Sunday, June 12th at 12 p.m. Eastern, Manulife Heart and Stroke's virtual Ride for Heart is happening. We hope you'll register and join us at rideforheart.ca. On June 12th at 12 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have a French webinar on mental health and wellness during COVID-19 for people living with heart disease, stroke, and vascular cognitive impairment. Now available, we also have Heart and Stroke podcasts specific on healthcare insights during COVID-19 as they relate to heart, stroke, and vascular cognitive impairment. We encourage you to take a listen at heartandstroke.ca/whatwedo/podcasts. Next slide, please. We'd now like to share with you a really important public service announcement video we've been working hard to get up and running.
The community is alarmed at the devastating impact of the pandemic. Too afraid to seek urgent care, people with heart conditions or stroke are suffering at home, risking irreversible harm. This is causing complications not seen for decades. Hospitals have taken extra precautions, so don't hesitate to seek care or to call 911 if someone has signs of heart attack, stroke, or cardiac arrest. Do not let COVID-19 destroy more lives. Learn more at heartandstroke.ca.
Now for an overview of today's webinar. We know there are many unknowns at this time for people managing heart conditions and the impact of stroke and vascular cognitive impairment. With the added element of COVID-19, we have to further adapt some of our health behaviors and prevention efforts. Today, we're pleased to have invited experts in the fields of dietetics, pharmacy, as well as a woman with lived experience, who are here to share the latest knowledge and answer your questions about managing nutritional needs and medications during COVID-19. This is meant to be an open forum session that gives you an opportunity to directly ask questions to these experts related to these matters. As for today's webinar panel, I'm pleased to introduce my co-moderator, Patrice Lindsay, Director of Systems Change and Stroke Program here at Heart and Stroke. She will be pleased to direct the questions you have as the audience to each of our panelists. We also have three presenters with us today, Sharon Gilroy-Dreher, Mitchell Zorzit, and Amanda Nash. I'll begin by inviting each of the three panelists to introduce themselves, let us know what they're observing during this time, as well as any important information they would like to share before we get into the question and answer period. As a friendly reminder, please start submitting your questions to the experts via our question box and continue to do so as they introduce themselves. We hope to be able to get through all of our questions in the time we have allotted today. Next slide. I'd now like to present our first presenter to you, Sharon Gilroy-Dreher. I'll invite Sharon to turn on her webcam and share a little bit more about herself. Welcome, Sharon.
Hi, thank you for having me today. So this is the disclosure slide. I have nothing to disclose, no conflicts of interest. I am a woman with lived experience. I had a left inferior cerebellar stroke in December 2015. And when it comes to nutrition and medication, I just want to say I'm not perfect, and I don't think all of anyone who's a stroke survivor or a heart attack survivor is perfect. We try our best every day and make small changes that we can. I try to eat vegetarian half of the week and limit things like red meat. And I've tried to do things like pick something small. For instance, we don't use salt at home anymore. It doesn't go on the table. It doesn't get added to things. I try to make sure I take a water bottle with me everywhere I go so that I'm drinking enough water during the day, and making changes. Where can I swap something out? So can I, have frozen yogurt instead of having ice cream? And I try to make notes on my phone if there are changes that I've noticed with medication, so that I can connect with my pharmacist. And I'll be honest, I have changed pharmacies 3 times simply to stay connected to the same pharmacist I have, because I really view him as a partner in my health team. I don't know what else I have to share. I just, it's a struggle every day. We're all learning, we're trying the best we can. And I think it's best not to beat yourself up if you're not perfect at doing everything right every day. It's a new day. Try better tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for your insights. That's fantastic. I'd now welcome our next presenter, Mitchell Zorzit, to share a few words with us today. Over to you, Mitchell.
Hi there, thanks for having me. My name is Mitchell Zorzit, and I'm a community pharmacist, Ontario College of Pharmacy PACE assessor, certified diabetes educator, and Shoppers Drug Mart associate owner in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Since graduating from the University of Waterloo School of Pharmacy 6 years ago, the majority of my career has been as a frontline pharmacist in the retail community pharmacy setting. COVID-19 has shifted my energy to be spent in collaboration with the community and staff colleagues on implementing policies to keep the pharmacy and community safe. Whether it be a pandemic or not, my line is always open to my patients to address their medication concerns. Community pharmacists are the most accessible healthcare provider and play a critical role in promoting public health and medication safety. Prior to the pandemic, we already know the important role that pharmacists play in the Canadian health system by giving you guidance on drug therapy, side effect management, immunizing, smoking cessation services, self-care counseling, basic healthy eating and lifestyle recommendations. Essentially, we act as your biggest advocate in your health while being in constant communication with your primary care practitioner. Hospital pharmacists may be more involved in your treatment of COVID-19 if you are admitted in the ICU, but in the community pharmacy setting, pharmacists are well positioned to help manage your chronic conditions during the pandemic. As evidence demonstrates, if you suffer from uncontrolled hypertension, diabetes, obesity, among other risk factors, you are at higher risk for worse outcomes from the COVID-19 infection. This comes at a time when any non-essential appointments are being canceled, leaving you to reschedule appointments, not getting your scheduled blood work or routine follow-up. These missed regular checkups will leave you less likely to have your blood pressure or blood sugar checked and managed. During the pandemic, you may have not had important medication additions or dose changes to help manage your specific conditions. Some patients may have also felt the effects from drug supply issues or financial strains resulting from unexpected layoffs or increased dispensing fees. Medication adherence issues due to drug costs and complex medication regimens and side effects can lead to worsening of your medical conditions and prevent you from living your best life. Your pharmacist is here to help, but we can encourage you to be more of an advocate in your own healthcare by teaching you to properly manage your home blood pressure, home blood sugars, and improve adherence by offering suggestions and recommendations. With the limited healthcare resources that we have at our disposal, and depending on the province, pharmacists can prescribe, adjust, and optimize your medications. If you're in self-isolation at home because of COVID-19, looking for symptom management, or you hear news of an article of how certain medications that you are taking interact with the virus, we are always a phone call away. The data changes by the day, so it's our duty to keep up to date on the changing information and keep you, our patients, safe. Regardless of where you live, if you have any medication concerns, take a minute to reach out to your local pharmacist. We are here to help.
Thank you so much, Mitchell, for that thorough overview. That's fantastic. Our final presenter for today is Amanda Nash. I'd invite my colleague Amanda Nash to turn on her webcam and give us a bit of an introduction.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Amanda. I am a registered dietitian and I work with the Heart and Stroke Foundation as the health promotion and nutrition manager. I have nothing else to disclose, so you can move to the next slide. So really quickly, in 3 minutes, it's hard to summarize healthy eating, but I guess the main message for you today is that healthy eating is not that sexy fad message that we often do hear, and we know there are a lot of there's a lot of different information out there about what healthy eating is, and so especially during COVID, we really need to get back to those basics and remember that healthy eating hasn't changed just because we're in this time of COVID. So you may hear about a super nutrient or an amazing supplement, a great fad diet that's all going to help boost your immune system and help you get through the pandemic. And we want to worry about that and remember that when we look at what we're eating, we need to make sure that our choices are sustainable and that they are based on sound evidence. So we know, sorry guys, my cat is trying to climb on me. So we know that healthy eating can look different for different people, but basically what we're looking for is more fruits and vegetables, a variety of whole grains, and a variety of protein options. We want to choose less foods that are highly processed and less beverages that are highly processed, which mainly would be those sugary drinks. And then when we're looking at those beverages, water is always the best drink of choice. If you're eating a healthy dietary plan, we know that we can help to improve our blood cholesterol levels, we can reduce and manage blood pressure, and we can control our blood sugars. We can also help ourselves to maintain a healthy body weight as well. So when we look at the specific diets that are out there, there's a lot of different dietary patterns and fad diets that are promoted. There are just 4 dietary patterns that the Heart and Stroke Foundation really does recommend. That is the DASH, which is Dietary Approach to Stop Hypertension dietary pattern, the Mediterranean dietary pattern, the vegetarian dietary pattern, and the MIND dietary pattern. And MIND is an integration of the DASH diet and the Mediterranean diet. So for more information about those, you can visit the Heart and Stroke Foundation's website. But a really key message around this is even taking aspects of those dietary patterns into your lifestyle in a way that is sustainable for you can show health benefits with blood pressure, with cholesterol, with weight, and reduced risk for vascular cognitive decline, for stroke, and for heart disease. So even though we are in amidst a pandemic, we can still look at these healthy food choices. We want to plan ahead with what we're planning to eat with our grocery lists. We want to make more meals at home where we control the ingredients, practice good hygiene, and then also be mindful of your eating habits as well. Next slide, please. So I've just put a few different resources here for you where you can find more information about how to eat healthy during a time of COVID from the Heart and Stroke Foundation and from Health Canada as well.
Thanks so much, Amanda. That's fantastic. I'll now hand it over to Patty, who will take us through the remainder of the question and answer period.
Thank you very much, Catherine, and to our 3 speakers, welcome, and we really greatly appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. We've got questions coming in, which is awesome. I'm going to start with kind of the elephant in the room in a way. In this time of physical distancing and being asked and told to stay at home, patients, people with lived experience, caregivers are really feeling isolated, but also unsure how to manage both their medications and their nutrition. One of the questions that I've received personally has been, will the pharmacist do virtual care? So our pharmacists actually, I know you can pick up the phone and call one, but Mitchell, maybe I'll start with you, but I'd also like Amanda to comment from a dietitian perspective as well. And can I ask all 3 speakers to please turn on their cameras so we have you all on screen the whole time? Thank you. There's everybody. So Mitchell, tell me a little bit about how you're interacting with patients when they aren't able to come into the pharmacy. As Sharon pointed out, her pharmacist is a very important part of her circle of care and somebody she trusts and wants to talk to. So how are you handling that?
Yeah, that's actually a really great question. Our model has definitely changed since the start of the pandemic. Virtual care has really taken off, at least in the medical field. I know there's a lot more telemedicine going on because a lot of the doctor's offices are closed. In pharmacy, it's a little bit slower of an integration, but we are still using the telephone line since it is the most secure line in order to reach out to patients. So the biggest challenge right now in pharmacy is that we got to find a way to protect people's privacy, protect people's medications, and protect each individual patient's medical information, and just make sure we find a portal in order to do so. So this whole pandemic has opened up a lot of different avenues, and it's causing a lot of different discussions among different businesses and the college to see whether or not we can open this up going forward. That being said, we're still able to do things at a distance. We're still able to provide the same medication information. We are still a phone call away. We're still open the later hours, and we're still open, weekends as well. Pharmacists have encouraged patients to get delivery at home and home counsels via the telephone. People can also schedule meetings to discuss their medications over the phone with the pharmacist as well. So yes, there's not really the whole face-to-face right now, just because of the security of it. Some pharmacies have found different ways to implement it, but this is definitely an area of exploring as we realize that pandemics like this will really change the way healthcare delivery is happening in our field.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Amanda, would you like to comment from the perspective of dietitians, please?
Sure. So first of all, if you are on certain dietary restrictions, like a sodium restriction or a fluid restriction related to your condition, you do want to continue to eat that habit that way and follow those restrictions even during our time of COVID. So if that is a struggle for you, it's very important to reach out to your healthcare team specifically. And there are some virtual appointments that are happening. I know a lot of dietitians in renal, in diabetes, they are still doing their appointments virtually. So you can definitely reach out to your current healthcare team for guidance and support. If you're having some struggles with your dietary patterns, with different questions about nutrition, and you'd like to talk to a dietitian, certain provinces do have a phone service. Here in Manitoba, it's Dial a Dietitian. BC, Ontario, Saskatchewan, they also have these phone services as well with different names. So you can always reach out to those services, which will provide you with general support and guidance on the phone. Those services are all open usually from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. with a toll-free number that you can call from anywhere within your province. So to double check that information, you can find that on the Dietitians of Canada website. You can also find a listing of private practice dietitians on Dietitians of Canada or on your College of Dietitian for your province website. And that will give you some options of who is doing virtual appointments at this time. It will also connect you with dietitians that are working in your community health centers, which you can link into through a self-referral or a physician referral. So there is a lot of work being done to help with telephone and virtual appointments so that you can still stay connected with your dietitian. And of course, you can always look to resources like Health Canada, Canada's Food Guide, or Heart and Stroke in our Get Healthy Eating section for some guidance and support as well.
Fabulous. Thank you. Sharon, do you have anything to add? I don't know if you've had an experience yet with virtual care or any comments about that?
I've had telephone care with both my physiotherapist and my physician. And then with my pharmacist, I had a question about the new limits that are on dispensing. So I get my prescriptions delivered. And I was surprised to find that I got a 30-day supply instead of a 100-day supply. So we had a conversation about that. And Mitchell can probably talk more to the shortages that are impacting that. But that was a surprise for me when COVID started.
Thank you, Sharon. And that perfectly sets up the next question. So I appreciate that. So Mitchell, yes, we've had a lot of people reaching out to Heart and Stroke confused. On one hand, public health measures are saying stay at home. On the other hand, pharmacists are only able to dispense 30 days worth of medication at a time, and not all pharmacies deliver. So people are having to go out of their house and feel, vulnerable and maybe unsafe having to go into the pharmacy more often. Can you comment on that at all, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like right now the provinces are starting to open up from the 30-day supply. I'm speaking from Ontario's standpoint. We're usually one of the last provinces to do that, but we do have the biggest population. So protecting our medications, protecting our supply is actually critical this time. The reason why is because many of the ingredients used to make the medications might not come from Canada. We might have to ship them in, might have to import them, and it could really throw a wrench into the supply distribution. I read a report that only about 3% of pharmacy orders will be fulfilled by the wholesaler. So to say that there's not shortages is a complete understatement. There are certain medications that are on allocation, certain inhalers, certain insulins that are coming only small amounts at a time to make sure that we ration them appropriately. That being said, and kind of referring back to the last question, their pharmacies have really implemented things like auto refills and the ability for people to check on their refills and be more involved in their care through a digital website to kind of keep track of their medications and to keep an accurate medication list and keep track of refills that way. So going forward, yes, it is a barrier to the health right now. Pharmacies are trying to adapt to that, but it's important that we do maintain our drug supply, because if we run out, then we're starting to have interruptions in patient care. Patients are going to have to start switching to different medications that they might have to get used to. They might have some side effects where they've been stable on it for years at a time. So I'm glad the provinces are taking a careful approach. Every province is a little bit different on how they mandate their pharmacy, the pharmacy distribution to be. In terms of Ontario, the ministry has just recently started to pick up some of the copays that were going to be a problem for some of the senior population. So hopefully in the next month, things start to smooth over when we have a good idea of what kind of supply we have and where we are with the outbreak.
Perfect, thank you very much. And now a question for both Mitchell and Amanda, and we'll maybe start with Mitchell on this one. We've had several questions from people asking about supplements. So both, natural supplements, vitamins, and other food supplements to help, because they're not going outside, they're worried about not getting enough sun, and as well having limited access to certain kinds of foods. If you're using up what's in your pantry, you may not be having a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables. So we've had a lot of questions about whether people should be taking supplements, and if so, what nature. So Mitchell, maybe you can start and comment on the vitamins and supplements from your perspective, and then Amanda, if you would also join in. Thank you.
All right, yep, that's a good question. So there's a lot of news right now about different supplements in the media. I know when the pandemic just broke, people were jumping all over the vitamin Ds, the zincs, and vitamin C as the main ones. They are being studied in literature right now, so don't think that they're not being looked at. Right now, the evidence doesn't support that they're going to do really much in terms of the COVID-19, whether it be prevention of it, the ability to fight it off. So, but there are still changing evidence regarding that. So once evidence hits the literature, hits the media, people will know. But at this time, it's not something that we just generally recommend to take. I mean, things you can do at home is try to just live as healthy of a lifestyle as you can. I know there's a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety this time of the pandemic. People are cooped up and they're starting to feel a little bit depressed or anxious, but doing things like kind of talked about before, limiting the alcohol, trying to have an exercise routine to get out of the house, even walks, 3 times a week, where that's something you haven't done before, can do wonders in terms of your overall outlook and your mood. Trying to get a balanced sleep so you feel good the next day, and proper sleep hygiene without the big meals right before, limiting the caffeine right before bed, makes you feel a little bit better the next day. So in my pharmacy setting, I don't usually generally recommend those supplements, especially in the COVID-19 for COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you. Amanda, would you like to add some additional comments to that, please?
Sure. Everything that Mitchell said was wonderful. Exactly what he was saying is that there is currently with the evidence that we have right now, there is no supplement out there or no specific food out there that will help you to prevent COVID. So we do want to be aware of that some of that messaging you hear could be a little bit of a marketing tactic. So you want to be aware of that as well. There's nothing that's deemed to prevent COVID from taking a different supplement. When we look at supplements supplements. Supplements are there just for that. They're there to supplement our food intake to help. It's almost like a little bit of an insurance policy to help ensure that you're getting all the nutrients you need. Now, the majority of people, if you are following a healthy, balanced diet, you will get those nutrients that your body needs from your food, unless you have a specific concern or a condition in which your doctor would definitely work with you to provide the proper supplementation. The only supplement that may potentially be useful, probably not right now as we're going into spring, but when we're looking at the fall and winter months, would be a vitamin D. Vitamin D being that sunshine supplement. A lot of Canadians don't get enough vitamin D from the fortified foods and from the sunshine in the winter months, because in the winter our UV is not strong enough to help us produce that. So if you are looking at supplements, maybe not right now, but as we come back to the fall, a vitamin D supplement might be something to look at, and talk to your healthcare provider, your pharmacist, your dietitian, or your physician to help give you further guidance on that. Otherwise, when we're looking at supplements specifically to COVID, there is no supplement recommendation to help prevent or manage COVID-19.
Great, thank you. Sharon, do you have anything else you'd like to add in terms of diet and supplements?
So I don't take supplements. My doctor's always been one to say, you know, you should try and get your vitamins and the nutrients from the food that you eat. So I don't really have anything to add to that at all.
No, that's pretty great advice. Okay, here's one for Amanda, and then Sharon, please welcome to comment. Everybody's been at home and they're talking about, instead of COVID-19, there's a lot of talk about the COVID-15, which, you know, for all of us who went away to college or university, you always talk about the freshman 15. So I've heard many people talking about the COVID-15, the eating more often because you're at home and you're munching all day. You're either the binge eater or the muncher, you know, the grazer who just constantly has something in their hand. People are feeling like they're gaining weight, and because of the restrictions, aren't getting outside to get their exercise. Amanda, maybe you can comment on ways to curb the munch, or to pick things that are low-cal and will make you feel like you've actually had something.
Sure. So I want to preference just with that overarching comment of be kind to yourself. So when we're looking at focusing on weight, it's never going to be a positive mindset. Weight is not a behavior. So when we're looking at health, in the COVID time or outside, focusing on the COVID-15 and monitoring your weight on that scale can be very obsessive, and it can be a very negative self-talk environment. So instead, look at those healthy habits, because we can't make a goal. A goal would not be, I'm going to lose 15 pounds that I've gained during COVID, but a goal around that might be, you know, I'm going to look at my environment to see how I can get more steps in and move my body more, and curb some of those snackings and the munching that I'm doing. And I'm going to do that by XYZ, making sure that it's a SMART goal. So it's specific, it's manageable, attainable, realistic, and that you put a time frame on it so that you can reflect back, look at any barriers, and move forward. So when it comes to the munching specifically, and the snacking and the food choices that you're having, we want to make sure that we're looking at continuing to eat those whole, natural, minimally processed foods more often. So we know that actually 54% of our Canadian food dollar is spent on highly processed foods, and highly processed foods are a main source of added sugar, of saturated fat, and of sodium, high calories. So looking at having more of those whole natural foods more often, and being prepared. So having that list for snacks, maybe you make a healthy snack list with your family, snacks everyone enjoys. You put it right there on the fridge, and you have those ingredients prepped and ready to go. So when you are feeling munchy and you go into the kitchen, you can easily have access to some of those foods that are going to give you nutrition. Because snacking is not a bad thing. It can give you some of the nutrients you need for your brain and for your muscles to get through that slump. But oftentimes it would also be being mindful about why you're eating. So double check with yourself before you go in for a snack, and say, is it my head that's hungry? Is it my mouth that's hungry? Is it my stomach that's hungry? So when we're looking at those different types of hunger, head hunger might be something more like you're bored, or you're stressed out, you're a little bit overwhelmed, and you're choosing food as an outlet. Heart hunger might be something sorry, that was wrong. That's what heart hunger is. So heart hunger is more related to those emotions. And then when we're looking at our head hunger, it's more because it's there. So you have that bag of chips, you have those crackers and the cookies and everything right there available for you. Maybe they're in a bowl, maybe somebody else in the house has them and they're eating them next to you. So that's going to be that head hunger where you're just eating because you see that and it's available for you. And then the stomach hunger is going to be when you're actually hungry and you physiologically need those nutrients. So not to say it's bad to have head or heart hunger, but you want to check in and recognize before you choose to have a snack or to eat why you're doing that. And then the more aware you are of your habits, the more that you can choose healthy choices or other alternatives. Because maybe if you're feeling like a snack and you tell yourself, you know what, I'm going to give myself 5 minutes. I'm going to go outside in the backyard and plant do some gardening, or maybe go for a walk around the block, or maybe I'm going to go and just organize my work for a bit. Whatever it is that you're doing at that time, give yourself that 5-minute break, have a glass of water, relax, and then you might have forgot about that craving altogether because it really was just a distraction based on either your head or your heart.
Okay, thanks so much. Sharon, do you have anything else to add to that?
And when all of that is right, I'll add on to that to say that working from home, I actually lost a few pounds because I wasn't going out and grabbing something to eat on my way to work because I didn't make breakfast. I wasn't going out to eat at lunch. And I would find that if I went in to sit down and do work, I might actually forget to stop to eat. So for me, it was not that, you know, my day was open. I was still doing work. And so I was distracted and my whole routine had been shifted. So I wasn't, you know, popping out at lunch to grab something to eat. On the flip side of that, I'm fortunate I don't do the groceries at home. And I also don't do the cooking. And I have a wonderful husband who stocked the fridge when we were home with healthy things. So my older daughters would bring me down healthy snacks. So a bowl of sliced up apples or some cheese and crackers or something to nibble on. So I think it's important to have readily available, easy to access snacks to eat. And that shift in routine has meant that, you know, when I go back full time to work, I think that I've kind of dismantled that routine of like stopping to grab a bagel on the way to work in the morning when I can quite easily make something healthy at home before I go.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that advice. Yeah, I've had to switch. For anyone who knows me at Heart and Stroke, my office tends to be the source of the jubes and the M&Ms when people are having their head hunger. So yeah, I don't have those jars here. They've been changed to baby carrots. So great advice. Over to you, Mitchell, for a question. And this is a bit of a trickier one. So people have expressed, you know, they've been talking to their physicians or healthcare providers about feeling more anxious during this time. There's lots of things, I think we all agree, that are making even the most resilient person feel anxious and uncomfortable. So this particular question is around, as a response, some doctors seem to be just prescribing anti-anxiety medications or other kinds of medications to deal with those stresses. And people are hesitant to just start taking medications for that reason. What is your recommendation if somebody is feeling uncomfortable? What is their best approach before taking something?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Obviously, you're right. During the pandemic, people are socially isolated. People are, you know, are afraid because they're afraid to get sick. They're afraid their loved one's going to get sick. Maybe they haven't seen their, you know, their close relatives or their grandchild in a really long time, and it definitely adds on people that way. Yeah, I think being as outspoken with it as possible and talking about those feelings is definitely a first step. In terms of like a natural medicine approach, there's not a whole lot of great options that are available over the counter, like we kind of talked about with the healthier eating, the limiting of alcohol, going out for exercising a couple times a week are great starting points to start. But depending on your city, depending on your health unit, there might be some services, some counseling services that are available that you can check out. A lot of the times your community pharmacist will know the services that are in your region, and just by reaching out, you know, just some cognitive behavior therapy might be everything that you need. That being said, there are some good medications that can help you kind of get through those hump. Usually takes a couple weeks to start to set in, but if it's been a prolonged, if it's been some prolonged bad feelings, it's definitely something to bring to your attention, because those negative feelings, we don't want them to keep spiraling down. So it is something to talk to your doctor about, talk to your pharmacist about. They do have some drug interactions with them, so we want to be careful with certain medications and certain disease conditions. But overall, though, there are some great first-line therapies that are very well tolerated that can kind of get you through at least this short bridge.
Perfect, and that sets up the other another related question as well about drug interactions. So people are leery about starting new drugs, especially, as Sharon has mentioned and others, that they're taking more than one drug already. And if you're having multiple medications, will the pharmacist automatically kind of check and pick up on that? Or do people have to themselves ask, is this safe for me? Am I going to have an interaction? So can you comment on people's fears about that and how best to address that issue?
Yeah, absolutely. So when a medication comes across our desk, it's our duty to open up your patient profile, to take a look to see what medications you're on, and to basically assess the risk level of that medication with your current therapy. Our job is to make sure that the dose that we're starting you off is a safe dose, an effective dose to start off with, where you're not going to get a dose too high that's going to cause some side effects. So for instance, like in terms of the cardiovascular side of things, antidepressant medication can sometimes interact with different medications that are used for cardiovascular protection. But your pharmacist is actually going to go through it with you, discuss the risk with you, and discuss how it will benefit you on the side as well. So to making sure you keep an open dialogue with the pharmacist, especially if you are going to a different pharmacy that might not have your complete profile. I know some people are trapped in different cities right now as they're maybe quarantined with a loved one. Making sure that your pharmacist has a complete history of what exactly you're taking is a good starting point to ensure the safety in your medications as well.
Perfect, thank you so much. Amanda, over to you. And this comes from our friends with congestive heart failure. So during the summer months, it's hot, they're sweating more and drinking more, but knowing that they're supposed to be limiting their fluids to 1.5 to 2 liters a day. Can you make some comments on how to manage fluid intake so not to create overload as the summer months, and even being at home, people are finding it's drier when they're in the house all day. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, for sure. And then perhaps Mitchell might have a comment as well about some of the different over-the-counter products that can help you with things like dry mouth and some of the other side effects. But when we're looking at managing your fluids, when you do have heart failure, it is so important that you manage that and keep within the restrictions that you were given. And so you need to ensure that you're looking not only just at the water intake and the beverage intake, but you're also considering things like your soup. If you have Jello, your Jello would count. So something that doesn't even look like a fluid, for example, those things will account towards that fluid intake as well. Now, the soup maybe not as relevant with the question that you're asking about the summer months and the heat, but looking at ensuring that you're staying within those restrictions, and then monitoring your body heat in other ways. So dressing appropriately, using your air conditioning, having a fan handy. So look at controlling your body temperature with other ways. But if you are having some side effects outside of that, while you're continuing to keep within those fluid restrictions, something like a dry mouth or excessive sweating, that might be something that would be that Mitchell might be able to talk to you a little bit more detail.
Fabulous. Over to you, Mitchell.
Hey, yeah. So dry mouth is actually a really common side effect in a lot of different medications. There's tons of medications used for both mood, for sleep, that cause a ton of dry mouth and a huge burden on people. It's one of the more common interactions and side effects that we feel on a daily basis. So talk to the pharmacist about it. It could very well be medication related. If it is, there might be alternatives that we could recommend or have a consult with you to talk to your doctor about as an alternative. That being said, there are over-the-counter things you can definitely use. There's different mouth sprays, mouth rinses that will add extra moisture to the mouth. Sugarless candy is a great example of something as well, that having that piece of candy in your mouth will release extra moisture, help you salivate, and reduce some of those side effects that you're experiencing.
Great, thank you very much. So back over to you, Amanda. There's a lot of questions about diet pop drinks or soda drinks. You know, we often say stay away from sugary drinks, and we put, you know, different sodas in that category, any kind of fizzy drinks. Are drinks that are like a soda water based with just flavoring but no sugar or calories, or any of the zero products that are on the market, are they safe and okay to drink, or are we supposed to stay away from those too, even if they're fat free and low sugar or sugar
Great question. That's definitely an area where we've had a lot of growth and popularity recently. So it can be slightly confusing when you're looking in that area because there are a whole bunch of new products out there that are actually just going to be a carbonated water with a natural flavor. So they're not going to have artificial sweeteners, and they're not going to have sugar added to it to give you that flavor. Those are great choices to have as your beverage of choice, but you do want to be a little bit cautious when you're picking out which ones you do prefer, what your favorite brands are, because there are also a lot that have some hidden sugars in them. So some of those flavored waters, they can have up to 9 teaspoons of sugar in just one bottle, and that's sugar that you don't even realize is in that product. So double checking the label when you turn it over, look what the sugar label, sugar in the ingredient list says, and then look for words like fructose, glucose, syrups, and then also things like juice. So a lot of those flavored waters, there's some brands that are actually half carbonated water and half juice, and juice actually is considered to be an added sugar as well. So double checking what you're actually purchasing, and then if it is one that is made with an artificial sweetener, so that might be something like a sucralose, for example, or it could be a sugar alcohol, so something that's ending in OL at the end of the name. So if it is made with a sugar alcohol or a sugar substitute, then you just want to be aware that there is some research out there that shows that when you're craving something and you give yourself that artificial sweetener, you're not really giving your brain what it's been asking for. So just again, it comes back to being mindful and making sure that you're understanding, are you thirsty? Are you hungry? Do you need a little bit of snack that has some energy and by then having something with an artificial sweetener, you're going to perpetuate your cravings and potentially overindulge later. So it's that common saying that that dietitians are known for, of everything in moderation. So even when we're looking at those artificial sweeteners, you still want to be consuming them in moderation, choosing water as your main choice. And if you're choosing a flavored water or a bubbly drink, just double checking that label so that you know what you're consuming.
Thank you. Okay, 2 more questions and then we'll be wrapping it up. So this one, back over to Mitchell, and it's kind of a 2-part question. So many people will come to their pharmacy to put their arm in the blood pressure machine to get their blood pressure readings because they don't have a machine at home. So question number 1 is related to, given that they're not coming in, and I know in many pharmacies, the machines have actually been taken away or covered up so that they can't be used because of the transmission concerns. What are you recommending for people? Are you suggesting everyone go out and buy a blood pressure cuff? And if they can't afford one, what are your thoughts on how they can kind of monitor their blood pressure?
Yeah, great question, actually. Yeah, so with the pandemic, a lot of the pharmacies have actually taken down their blood pressure meters. That's just to prevent the spread of the COVID-19. That being said, the blood pressure meters at the pharmacy are not generally the most recommended ones, I find, for patients. What happens is they only have the 1 cuff size, and it could really either give you too high of readings or too low of readings, depending on if you might be overweight or you might be very slim. So taking your blood pressure at home can be recommended for people that are suffering from hypertension, chronic kidney disease, or diabetes. The evidence from Hypertension Canada is that those conditions, there should be some sort of home monitoring, but it's not something that people need to do on a daily basis. So with the, as I said, kind of my intro, with the fallout on some appointments, people might not be getting medication adjustments. By having an idea how your blood pressure is at home, it's a good tool to have for that next appointment coming up. Now, when you're selecting a blood pressure monitor, you want to be careful because there's a lot of different kinds that are available. You have the wrist blood pressure monitor, you have a finger blood pressure monitor, you have the arm blood pressure monitor. Make sure you select the arm blood pressure monitor. It's going to give you a much accurate reading. And when you select your meter, you want to look on the side of the box and look for a logo that says Hypertension Canada. This endorsement is going to basically say that it's going to work a little bit better and it's standardized to our Canadian standards. Now, when you take blood pressure at home, we want to take meaningful readings if you are going to do it. Again, I'm not telling people to take it every single day. That's not something that we need to do any stretch. But if you have an appointment coming up, it might be a good idea to take your blood pressure at home for a couple days, even a week before your appointment. Give your readings to your doctor and just to get them to see how your blood pressure is acting at home. We're finding that certain people's medications behave, or certain people's blood pressure behaves differently in a doctor's office than they do at home. And since you're spending, 99.9% of your time at home, we want to make sure that your readings at home are within a normal range and you're not experiencing any side effects associated with lower blood pressure. So after you're selecting that correct blood pressure, which you can talk to either me or any other pharmacist about to pick you out a good one, when you're at home, you want to be taking your blood pressure when your bladder is empty, you haven't eaten or spoken for at least 30 minutes. We hopefully at least 1 hour between caffeine or cigarettes and 2 hours between any meals. And I said bladder empty. Have a good spot to take it with your back supported, your arm supported at heart level to take your blood pressure reading. Wait 5 minutes. And relax, get down your heart rate before taking the reading. 2 minutes after that, take your blood pressure again and record that down. So I would say between 3 to 7 days before, take your blood pressure twice a day before your doctor's appointment, record those readings. First one being first thing in the morning, right after you get up, before you have your breakfast, and one at bedtime. Do that for a couple of days, and you're going to have a little bit better outlook for your doctor on how your blood pressure is managing at home.
Great, thank you so much. And similar to that, with all the restrictions on ambulatory care and blood labs not being available, or people not being able to go in for their INR testing, or their how thin their blood is, would the pharmacy do a point of care test on INRs for patients if they can't get to a lab in order to monitor their Coumadin?
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. That's definitely an expanded scope of pharmacy. In Ontario, we're not able to do that without a medical directive. So basically, a medical directive is an okay by the doctor to manage that patient at our pharmacy. But other provinces, they have a little more jurisdiction in terms of what they're able to do. That being said, with my patients on warfarin, because yes, it is an issue with warfarin tests. If for those who are not on warfarin, the test is called INR Test, International Normalized Ratio, and it's a measure of how thin your blood can be, or how long it takes for your blood to clot. So people on warfarin need to be careful that they don't want their blood to be either too thin or too thick in order to prevent the disease that we're trying to prevent, basically any type of clot. That being said, what I'm doing with those people is making sure I have that discussion on what to look for if your blood is too thin or is too thick, and knowing what causes a higher INR or a lower INR. So anything like acute illness or heavy alcohol drinking can really increase that INR and put people at risk for bleeding, which looks like dark charcoal-like stools. Any vomiting with any type of coffee ground appearance into it, unexplained bruising or bruising that's not healing, or common symptoms of bleed, they need to get assessed, and they need to get their INR checked a little bit more frequently. That being said, too low of INR could put people at risk for clotting. So clotting could be for a DVT is big swelling legs, red marks in the legs, a lot of pain and tenderness, or in the lungs, pulmonary embolism could lead to a lot of coughing up blood, or any type of shortness of breath when we're laying down. This could lower INR can have dietary changes resulting in higher vitamin K intake and dark leafy greens. I'm sure Amanda could talk a little more about that. Increase in alcohol on a frequent basis. So if you never drank before and all of a sudden you're having maybe 1 or 2 glasses of wine a day, could potentially impact your INR negatively that way. And of course, missed doses can negatively impact your your INR and reduce that level down. So making sure patients have an idea of how INR or some of the risks of high and low INR is a good starting point. But if you're stable on it, there's guidelines in the United States called CHEST guidelines. I do actually recommend you can extend your INR for people that are very stable, even out 12 weeks. So it depends on you as a patient. If you're very out of range, you can't make it to the appointment, talk to your doctor. There are some other medications that don't require such monitoring if you qualify and you have specific heart conditions.
Great, thank you. Amanda, do you want to make a comment regarding managing INRs from your diet and maybe trying to be more consistent? Because I know, and I'll just comment that I know the machines themselves, we're certainly not recommending everyone run out and buy one. They're extremely expensive. They're $500 plus, and the strips are $8 each, unlike the monitors we have for glucose, which are a lot more accessible and cheaper. So Amanda, would you like to comment from your perspective on this?
Sure. From the nutrition perspective, what we're looking at is, as Mitchell mentioned, it's the vitamin K. So ensuring that you're having that consistent intake. So that doesn't mean that that you can't have any foods like leafy greens anymore. But what it does mean is that we want to make sure that it's consistent. So we're not having a high amount of that nutrient one day and then a low amount of that nutrient the next day, because that may cause some changes in our INR. So to double check where you're at, the first step would be to be familiar with different foods that have these nutrients. And so you can find lists of those foods. I'm sure the pharmacy probably has some as well. When you get your medications, like your warfarin, your Coumadin, also you can find them through the Dietitians of Canada website. They have a really great resource that has a list of the foods, their vitamin K amounts. And then as you start to learn the different amounts of those vitamins that are in these foods, it can be very helpful for you to understand, if you're not used to having a cup of this a day and then you're not going to have that, what other foods can you ensure that you're having to make sure that it's a consistent intake so that you're not causing alarming changes within your INR because of that. So I guess my recommendation would be to have a list to get familiar with the amounts of vitamin K in different types of foods.
Great, thank you. And I think that's it for today. This has been fantastic. I would like each of you, I'm going to go to each of you and ask you to just make a final comment, maybe one key message to leave everybody with. Sharon, can we start with you?
Sure. I think the thing that I would share with people is it's okay not to be perfect and to pick something small that's manageable for you. So if the first thing you choose is to eliminate added salt from your diet, then get rid of it out of the house, and then go on to something else that's manageable. So I'm going to replace whatever I drink with a water bottle, and I'm going to carry it with me wherever I go. And so water is my drink of choice. So as long as it's manageable, because it doesn't help if you say, oh, I'm going to be this expert. This is how I'm going to eat. I've revamped my entire diet, and you just get frustrated and then you don't do any of it. So for me, little incremental changes are best.
Great, thank you. Amanda.
Yeah, I think my main message is just to remember that food plays a big role in our life in many different ways. So it's not just about nourishing our bodies, but it's about our cultural relationship, our social relationship, multiple different ways that food is really tied in to our lifestyles. And so it's important that we maintain that positive relationship with food and understand that, food has the power to fuel our bodies, the power to prevent disease, the power to discover and heal and bring people together. So there's multiple aspects when it comes to food and nutrition. And so you want to be kind to yourself and remember that. And then also just when you take a step back and look at everything we've talked about today, because there's been a lot of information, it's not expected that you're going to go tomorrow and change everything just like that. So as Sharon was saying, building upon that, taking small steps towards what you want to be your healthy lifestyle. So be wary of switching to a new diet tomorrow just because it's been out there to help you prevent COVID, for example. Remembering that over 90% of people people who go on a diet will not be able to stay in that more than at least a year, so a year being the max, and also that they'll regain any weight that they've lost on that diet if that was their goal. So keeping that in mind, that diets don't really work, and instead let's take little pieces of what we've talked about. Maybe it's an extra vegetable a day, maybe it's putting that list of healthy snacks on your fridge, maybe it's being more mindful about your food choices and asking yourself those questions as to why you're eating, and then take small steps again towards how you can fit your lifestyle to where you want it to be.
Thank you. Final comment from you, Mitchell, and then we'll have a special little video.
Yeah, thank you. Basically, what I want to say is just utilize your pharmacist to its full potential. They're there to advocate your health. So if you're having concerns about your medication, you're taking too many medications in a day, you're taking medications 4 or 5 times a day, the pharmacist can help you and work on a treatment plan to help bring some of those down, to help you improve your adherence and your compliance with it. Taking your medications regularly will, along with nutrition, eating well, sleeping well, are steps to a better life. And we can be your biggest advocate for you. We're in constant communication with your doctor. We consistently take notes to put on your patient file and follow up on you regularly. We are accessible, so just give us a call, whatever you need in terms of side effects, over-the-counter recommendations. It's an easy touch point and to ensure your safety and well-being.
Great, thank you very much. Moira, can we go to the next slide, please? So we really want to thank all of our speakers. We would like to encourage everybody who's joined us today. If you're looking for support, we have 2 amazing communities online. We have a community for people with lived experience and one for caregivers. And we really encourage you to check us out on Facebook and to join these communities. There's a tremendous amount of support that happens within those, and it's, run by the members and really for the members. So please look into those at heartandstroke.ca/connect. Next slide. So again, I'd like to thank all of the people who have contributed to today's webinar, our 3 speakers, Mitchell, Amanda, and Sharon, for Katie for hosting, and all of our behind the scenes. We have a tremendous, excellent group, Pam and Kirsten and Rebecca, also working tirelessly behind the scenes, as well as our colleagues in Quebec will be hosting a similar webinar next week in French. So please look into that if you're French speaking. So just to wrap up, as we've talked about nutrition a lot today and managing your medication, all of our speakers talked about physical activity and exercise as a way to manage all of your well-being during this time. So what we've got coming up is our Jump Rope for Heart, which is traditionally a program in schools for kids, is now going virtual. And Jump Rope is a fun way for kids to learn about good health, including exercise and nutrition. And we want kids across the country to take the leap for our virtual jump this year on June 19th. So we really encourage families, everybody to participate with your children on this event and to join a live stream celebration on June 19th at 1 p.m. So here's a little bit more about Jump to leave you with as we end this webinar.
Since my husband passed away, it was just a reminder at such a young age, even a reasonably healthy person, passed away from heart disease, and it can happen to anyone. I think Jump Rope for Heart is important because it teaches kids to live a healthy lifestyle and take an active stand in their health, and these are healthy choices that they can make every day throughout the rest of their life. When Kayla told me that she wanted to participate in the Jump Rope for Heart program, I felt really proud. For one, obviously she'd be making a difference in other people's lives, but I could also envision how in taking part in Jump Rope for Heart, it would also help her, overcome some of the things that she's going through. I think parents should support their children in fundraising because children can see at a young age how a small act can have such an impact. And also, in Kayla's case, she was able to gain more confidence. It helped her in goal setting and also becoming more resilient, right, in the face of challenges. And these are everyday skills that children can learn at a young age.